Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Allah created the world and everything in it. And Allah sustains and maintains the world and everything in it. And Allah sent prophets to his creation of man so that man could understand truth and come to know him. Allah sent 124,000 prophets into the world. They came everywhere, and they came to bring an understanding of who and what God is, an understanding of what man's place is, and an understanding of what man's nature is. He sent these prophets throughout the world so that all of mankind was given this information. If we look to the skies, we see clouds form prior to rain. And then we'll hear thunder. We may hear thunder. We may see lightning and see the striking of lightning. Like that, the words of the prophets came into the world, like thunder and lightning. Thunder spreads in all directions. Lightning spreads in all directions. And rain comes throughout the world. And like that, the prophets came throughout the world. As rain goes in different directions, so lightning and thunder went in different directions, and the prophets came in different directions. The prophets came with a sound. It was the sound of the Nur, a section of Allah that speaks the truth. And the prophets came to speak the truth. And from these 124,000 prophets, who are also known as Rasuls or messengers, the last one was Muhammad, and he finalized the coming of the Rasuls. And what we learned from these messengers or Rasuls is what's being taught today throughout the world. It's being taught through scripture and through religion and through various forms of religion that have all taken their own shape and their own form. Man has become involved with the teachings. Insan is different than the prophets. Insan is man. The messengers, the Rasuls, the prophets, were sent directly by God with specific instructions as to what to bring into the world. And they did what they were instructed. Man, who didn't have the insight, the clarity, the lack of self-motive that the prophets had, began then to spread the word themselves. And often there were deviations from the actual word that was spread because man was not capable of understanding the truth of what the prophets said and the depth of what the prophets brought. So they told what they could, they told as they interpreted, but then other things began to happen. the institutions that were established after the prophets sometimes became more important than the actual message. So for many men who were involved in the business of religion, maintaining that business and keeping that business profitable became the most important thing within the religion. And so Allah, even though he stopped sending prophets, continued to send people to reveal the truth. And these people are known as Ketubs, and they are sent every century or so in order to clarify what's been lost and to bring the truth back to the religion, so that that which has been hidden is brought out into the open, is explained into the open, is brought to man. Now, the main message of the prophet is the understanding of Allah's qualities, Allah's gracious nature, Allah's love, Allah's kindness, God's compassion, God's mercy, God's truth. But men began to create separations among each other, and they began to infer things like truth is only with us, God's qualities are only with us, and they separated themselves from other men. They separated themselves from the rest of humanity. This was incorrect. The Ketubs came back to explain that the prophet's teachings were about unity, unity amongst all men, unity amongst the entirety of mankind. But sometimes it was difficult, after years and years and years had gone by, for the Ketubs to deliver their message, because people became attuned to what they had been taught, and they became entrenched in what they had been taught, and they refused to understand something new. If you're a farmer and you have a wagon with a bull that you take from your home to the field, and then you take the bull and the wagon that he's pulling back from the field to your house, even if you're driving and you drift off into thought and stop guiding the bull, you drift off and you may fall asleep, the bull will continue to go in the direction that he knows. He'll continue to go in what he has been taught over and over and over again. So if he's going from the field, he will go home. If he's going from home, he will go to the field. If someone turns him, he'll go in that direction and go to neither the home and the field. The bull doesn't have the analytic ability to determine where he's going and why he's going there. He just goes as to what is known. And it's the same way with man. If a friend comes along and your friend is argumentative and convincing, he may change your mind about things, and all of a sudden, the direction that you have been going in, you will change because of the fact that your friend gave you a very powerful different opinion. Men usually will follow the teachings of their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. And when something new comes along, it is very difficult for man to change and follow this something new. Man will not use his analytic wisdom. He'll just use his mind. And the mind goes to the same places that it knows, goes back and forth to the same places that it knows. It will not easily go forward into new spaces. It will not easily go forward into new paths. Like the bull, it will go to the field and go to the house. And this becomes the routine. And the mind is not willing to break that routine. The mind wants to continue to follow that routine over and over and over. It takes courage to follow a new path. It takes courage to go to places where you haven't been. It takes courage to listen to new ideas, and it takes courage to incorporate new ideas into your being. Even if you have the light of wisdom dawn within you, the mind is like gas, gasoline, or oil. And when that light of wisdom and the gasoline or the petrol or the oil come together, there's an explosion and damage will be caused. The mind will cause damage to your new path. The mind will cause damage to the new ideas that have been brought to you. Now, in order to go beyond these old ideas that everybody has, the sedentary ideas that just take you locally, but don't take you towards where Allah intended you to go, which is to meet Him, you need a true teaching. You need the teaching that came from a ketub. You need the teaching that was sent by Allah from the light to interpret the religious teachings, to open them up so that you can understand reality, as opposed to being caught within the rituals of the teachings. Where will rituals take you? Where will scriptures take you? How far can reading books take you? You need something that will take you further than that. You need something that is transformative, something that can change your inner being, something that can connect to your heart and bring the divinity that is within your heart into the forefront of your being, that can separate within you that which is divine and that which is worldly, that can act as a filter to show you that which will be of benefit to you and that which will not be of benefit to you. In the world, there are many precious things. There are jewels, and jewels can be worth a lot of money. But there are also minerals that can be worth a lot of money, like gold. And you have to know the worth of all these things. You can't eat gold. You can't drink gold. You can't drink or eat precious gems. So you have to learn what their value is, and you have to learn how to trade them, how to use them in order to supply things for yourself, in order to supply food, in order to supply water, in order to supply clothing, in order to supply housing. You have to learn the value of these things. So just as we have to learn the value of these things, we have to learn the value of the teachings that we are shown. And we have to learn how to use them for ourselves. We have to learn how to use the teachings so that we accomplish something on our behalf. If you look at the sun, it is at a great distance from you. If you look at the moon, it's at a great distance from you. The sheikh or the guru comes into your life, and at first, he is at a great distance from you. And you can choose to keep him at a distance from you, like the sun and the moon, or you can choose to bring him closer to you, to incorporate him into your being, and to incorporate yourself into his being. You must intend to merge with the guru, merge with the sheikh, so that his qualities become your qualities, so that his teachings become your teachings. Now, all the while that this is going on, you have the mind, which has literally a mind of its own, which will constantly doubt that which you are being taught and try to act as the authority in your life. And what it is that we have to do is we have to nullify the authority of the mind and replace that authority with the authority of the true teacher, with the authority of the sheikh, with the authority of the guru. So when we have contradicting ideas coming out from wisdom and from the mind, when these two meet, there will be danger. But if we can nullify the authority of the mind, then we can begin to accept the authority of the sheikh. But what happens is that the world will be telling you that what the mind is telling you is what's true, and what the sheikh is telling you is not worthwhile and does not fit in what has been taught to your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth. And therefore, you should stay away from that teaching. So what happens is each of us individually has to conclude that we have to make a break from that which we have been taught all our lives. And then the arguments come, but this is not within the framework of your religion. This is not within the framework of what your parents taught you. This is not within the framework of your worldly religious teachers and what they've taught you. Therefore, you can't accept it. Imagine when each of the prophets came along. Imagine when Moses came along, and Moses went to get the commandments from God, and he went up into Mount Sinai, and he didn't come down. And what did the people do that were with him? They reverted to what they knew. They reverted to what they had been taught before them, and they reverted to idol worship. They reverted to building a calf to worship. And then when Moses came down with the commandments, there was a great difficulty and a great difficulty in bringing across his truth, because the people decided to sway away. But then they came back because of God's resonance within Moses, because of God's power within Moses, and because many of them understood the great power that was within Moses through God. But even as they traveled through the Sinai, and when they were shown miracles and given food from heaven, they complained. They complained that they didn't have the vegetables they were used to. They complained that they didn't have the tastes they were used to. Why were they wandering and having to rely just on this one food when they used to have so many different foods? People were incapable of seeing and accepting the miracle that was in front of them. And all of this comes from the mind and the desire within the mind that is constantly critical and not satisfied with what's going on, even though what's going on is a divine gift given directly to man and shown directly to man. There's still difficulty in man to accept that gift. What happened when Jesus came? Jesus was accepted by few and was able to teach to few, but to most, there was no interest, because he was teaching a teaching that was somehow different and beyond what was then entrenched. He was trying to express that divine love was capable of being found by man, and that the highest level of man was to bring this divine love into his being and share this divine love with the rest of humanity, with the rest of their contemporaries, with the people that they met, with the people they were involved with. When Muhammad came, the same thing happened. The teaching was such that he denounced idol worship, and he indicated that there was but one God, and that God was a unity for all men. And men who understood this were called Muslims. And the word Muslim means believer. And the ones who became believers were to surrender to Allah. But over time, the word Muslim became restricted to a certain group of people. The word believers became restricted to a certain group of people, even though this was an open invitation to humanity and was capable of being accepted by all of humanity. We must understand that the message gets repeated over and over and over again. And as the message becomes repeated, it then becomes ossified. It becomes solidified, and it doesn't have that open, flowing nature and acceptance that it had when the prophets were here, because it's now being taught and spread by men who don't have the transcendent nature of the prophets, and they don't have the resonance of the prophets. And then you have groups in all religions who say, we need to go back to the time of the prophets, and we have to do what was done during the time of the prophets. But because of their limited understanding, what they begin to do is they begin to institute elemental things as if they had religious significance. They begin to institute elemental things as if they had transcendent significance, as if they had divine significance. So you're supposed to grow your hair in a certain way. You're supposed to grow your beard in a certain way. You're supposed to wear your clothes in a certain way. And these rituals become that which replaces the true understanding of divinity within man. So man gives up on divinity and replaces divinity with ritual, and replaces divinity with observances that are far from significant in our own progress and in our movement towards God. The path is called a straight path, but there was a song a few years ago. Thank God for the broken road that took me straight to you. The point being that the path is straight, but there's a lot of twists and turns on the path. So it isn't just a straight upwards trajectory. It's more like a helix. You come around and you may come back to the same place over and over again. And as your wisdom grows, you see that same situation in an entirely different light. You see that same situation in a way that the last time you saw it, you weren't capable of comprehending. But now, because wisdom has progressed within you, because you've become more attuned to truth and reality, you see it in a new way. It's like when the clouds gather and all of the circumstances are appropriate, you get rain and you get sound. Well, in the heart, when all of the different qualities within you become more and more appropriate, become more and more in line with God, wisdom rises in your heart. And just like lightning, sound comes forth, a sound that is revelatory and shows you things that you could not have seen before and that you could not have known before. So it's like if you had a set of binoculars, you can see a lot further. If you had a telescope, you can see even further than that. If you have a microscope, you can see closer than you could ever see before. Well, growth of wisdom is like a binocular. It's like a telescope. It's like a microscope. It allows you to see things in a way that you could never see before. As we move along through our life, and as we move along in our path of wisdom, as we become closer to the true teaching, as we accept the Sheikh within us more and more, things begin to happen. For starters, we begin to understand the nature of the qualities of Allah. Allah is without form, but in this formless form, he does have qualities. And these qualities are the 3,000 gracious qualities and the 99 names of the exalted effulgence of our Lord. And as we incorporate these into us, then we begin to go places. And we need to be able to follow where it is that we go. We need to know where things can take us. You should realize that this body can only go to one place, and that's the cemetery. The body can't go further than that. In this world, we're attached to so many things that we consider important. But once this body disappears, all those attachments lose all of their importance. They no longer have any consequence to us. But then we begin to learn that the qualities, if we can incorporate them into our being, they will lead to the freedom of the soul. And then the soul can be at the forefront of functioning within our being. And what does the soul entering into the functioning of our being do for us? It takes us to the place where we can surrender to Allah. And what does surrender to Allah do for us? It rids us of the I. It rids us of the idea and the attitude that we are somehow individual and separate and are functioning on our own. It brings us to the place where we enter into unity with all of existence. And so where does the disappearance of the I take us? It takes us to the place, the realm of contentment and serenity. And what is at that place of contentment and serenity? It's the place where man and God can be in the same place at the same time. And when that occurs, that's when we can enter into our Lord and he accepts us as his. And this is the trajectory that we're on. But to do this, we have to break away from all of our ideas. We have to break away from all that we've been taught, and we have to enter willingly into the teachings of the Ketub, the teachings of the Sheikh, and the teachings of light that bring us on this journey of light towards light, where we become light and enter into light. And we then begin to understand the nature of truth and the nature of reality, and it all opens up for us. Each thing takes us a certain way. For instance, if you're riding a camel will take you across the desert, but when you're done with the desert and you get to the shore, you need another vehicle. So you get in a boat, and a boat will take you across the water. But when you reach the end of the shore, you need something else to take you further. And on this path, the Sheikh will show us at each step what it is that we need to take us further, what it is that we need to bring our path to the conclusion that is intended for us. The Creator created us with the intention that we return to him, that we become like him in our qualities. And Allah has, in his mercy, sent the 124,000 messengers, the 124,000 Rasuls, the prophets. He has sent the saints, the holy ones, the light beings, and the Ketubs to set us straight so that we could see reality. The Ketub came in front of us as a manifest being of divine qualities so that we could see that this is possible. And we are capable of becoming that. We are intended to become that. It is what Allah brought us here for. So understand that this is not a dream. This is not some imagination. This is the truth. The truth is you have divinity within you. You came from divinity and you are to return to divinity. And the path of that divinity is laid out for you by the true teaching and the true teacher. And in our lives, that true teaching came, that true teacher came. And it is now up to us to accept that and make that the authority in our life so that we can go where we are intended to go. May Allah make it easy for us. May Allah take us on that path. May Allah show us and give us the courage to break away from everything that isn't real and to accept the truth and allow us to become that truth and to surrender to reality. May that be the fate for each and every one of us. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.